Hey guys, Justin Brock here with another episode of Gurunomics. And today I am really excited because I have the one and only Bruce Weinstein, who's fresh off a trail of probably motivation galore because he's been at Cody Askin's Power Players Mastermind down in Florida, or you were at the what was it called? What was that?
Rising Stars.
You were a speaker there, right?
I was a speaker, yeah.
So he was a speaker at the Rising Stars. You were down there at the same time. So all that stuff was going on. I was seeing everybody's social media tracks, and I saw you up there a lot. And then I think I saw you somewhere else recently.
I was Monster Nation for the weekend before with Coach Burt. And then I did the private plane to Long Island with them and some nice power players with including Brad Lee. So yeah, I haven't been home much for September, and I'm leaving for SWAT tomorrow. And
nice.
I'm speaking in San Antonio the weekend after. So man, yeah, we're ramping up
out there, man. That's what I mean, sometimes you just got to get in the room and get out there to build your network. And early on, a lot of people, think, okay, who is getting in the room for? I think it's for everybody. No matter what your agenda is, because early on, my agenda was to write more Medicare policies, right? And getting in the room helped me do that because I'd learned these tricks, and obviously you have to temper it depending on where you're at in the process. But you've gotten in a lot of rooms lately. What's that been like for you? Do you think it's been beneficial for you?
Absolutely. This all started with going to SWAT back in April, where you and I really met for the first time. And I met Pete Fournay, and I had known Brad Hannon from our upline in the health side, but getting to meet everybody and being exposed to everybody, as they say, get in the room, then led to, oh, by the way, would you guys be interested in this? And then the biggest thing out of SWAT was my introduction to Coach Burt. And then that flight home, I listened to his person of interest. And that really ignited I'm going to reach out to Justin. I'm going to reach out to Brad. I'm going to reach out to Pete and Cody and talk about this case I did a number of years ago, which you've been hearing about. Yeah. And would that be something people would want to know? It was a very large insurance sale using annuities and life insurance. And it was a solving, not selling opportunity. And so I kind of built out from there some talking points to get in front of an audience. And Cody gave me the opportunity at 8%. And you've offered me for Medicare Con the same. And it's just kind of been parlaying, and it's still being created, the content, the message, but I'm just forcing myself to do it. And it's just opening up more doors and tied to my social media activities. Yeah. It's getting us opportunities. Yeah. So speaking and business.
Couple things to unpack there. So, first of all, Coach Burt always talks about having a message, and I can't remember exactly how he talks about a concept. He talks about a concept, right. And you just said solving, not selling. I don't know if you've developed a concept for a book, but solving, not selling sounds really.
It is
cool.
a title. Yeah,
I like that. It is.
I have 2 books in motion, and the second one is, are you solving versus selling? How to get more sales by solving. So I'm working on the content to make it meaty enough.
From a title perspective, I really like solving, not selling, or solving, not selling as a big title. And then, but anyway, because it caught when you said it, I've not heard anybody say that. And I like that. Right. So also your social media content. So I love the fun that you bring to just small things like doing from right where you're sitting, doing the birthday messages, anniversaries. That I love it, man. Because
I didn't know if you want it on camera, but I always have it sitting.
Dude, I like it because somebody else told me, I think it was my brother that saw yours, or maybe you gave him a birthday shout out or something one time. And he said, man, have you seen Bruce Weinstein? I love that guy. He's so fun. He's so, to watch that. So I love that, man. Just bringing levity and fun to it. What started that idea?
So A, I'm having a blast with it. B, your brother grabbed me at 8% and stopped me. And I'm like, oh, people are paying attention. So it was very, very positive. And I think we gave a shout out. Maybe it was your wife's birthday the last couple of months as well. And
our anniversary,
kind of got you on.
You gave it.
Oh, your
anniversary. She loved that.
Right. Tempest.
Yeah.
So it basically started. I'm in a peer group called the Closers Click with other insurance agents. It's a mentoring program, coaching program. And you know, Sandra Gebhardt, Sandra's part of that. She's one of the coaches. And the biggest thing for me was learning and understanding the power of social media and the Facebook. And so one of the early things we did, let's say February, March, was to go live on Facebook. And I'd never done it. I'm certainly not comfortable. I'm sure you've noticed I've lost a few pounds. So, you know, I had the COVID bloat and my clothes didn't fit. And last thing I wanted was to be on camera, right? And to bring attention to myself because you're just not feeling good from a weight standpoint and how you represent. So, but we did it. And then it kind of became the send somebody a personal message for their birthday, but going into the be memorable. And I've always been one from, if I'm sending a gift or acknowledging your birthday, I want shelf life. I want something memorable, not just with everybody else, right? So they've always said over the years, don't send a Christmas card, send a Thanksgiving Day card, because nobody sends Thanksgiving cards and you get 100 Christmas cards, right? So Sandra mentioned one of the most memorable birthday acknowledgments she got was a personal video from somebody. So I started doing that. So I'm like, hey, Justin, it's Bruce, wishing you happy birthday. And I had a tiara and I had, pink glasses that sparkled, right? And I sent it to somebody that I literally went to preschool with. I know her like 50 plus years, 55. Yeah. And so she's like, that was awesome. Like, I can't believe you did that. And so as that picked up, doing one at a time became time consuming. I said, well, I'll do one big one. Yeah. And so again, it takes a lot of time too, because I'm writing the names, I'm harvesting names all day long. Yeah. I'll make my list and then I record it and then I got to type it in. I got to tag everybody. So it's a good amount of time, but the response has been unbelievable. And you guys warmed my heart when we walked around 8%. My wife's listening in. I think we had at least 20 people stop us to say, it's great. I love it. Keep doing it. Yeah. And except for you, I don't think any of them were really tagged, but they're seeing it. So even if they're not liking it or sharing it, they are seeing it. Yeah. And the last tie-in that weekend was my birthday and my wife's birthday coming in. So Robin's birthday was a day or two before. And of course, I acknowledge her birthday in there. Pete Fournay, when I introduced Robin to Pete, leaned into her and said, oh, by the way, happy birthday. So he's watching it. I'm like, look at that. Like they're paying attention. And so that's the power of social media.
People sometimes think the number of likes they get or the number of, shares or whatever, the vanity metrics are indicative of how many people are watching. Yeah. And to some degree they can be, but it's deceiving because you can get literally almost none of those metrics and still a lot of people are watching. So, we have 7,600 members in the Medicare Gurus group. And, sometimes a great post will get 300 likes. Right. But I'm telling you, 2,000 people read it or watched it. And there'll be people that come up to me later on so often and say, hey, I watched that. I don't know why they do this, but they'll say, I don't click like a lot. I don't like to comment. I don't like to draw attention to myself, but I watch it and I liked it. I liked the content. I didn't physically like it. And so I guarantee you there's 5 times as many people watching what you're doing and like it as will click like or share or comment. So I love it. I think it's a great content and it's a great way to get attention by just adding value to the platform. So
I get touches back from people that I'm connected to. To me, Facebook's the new LinkedIn. Like, business is being done. We're getting referrals and tagged and invited into conversations to help people in all walks of insurance every week, almost every day. we're getting 5 to 7 referrals between our networking activities and our social media activities, which is phenomenal. And that's part of what we talked about at the Rising Stars workshop last week. But what's interesting is, depending on what device I'm on, my phone versus my desktop, sometimes I see the metrics where it shows views on the video, and then sometimes I never see it. So I'll flip on one device to the other, and all of a sudden I see you had 297 views. I'm like, oh, I had no idea that many people saw it. So your two devices are not always even giving you the data.
Yeah. Well, then, Joe Camper was at the Rising Stars workshop and was speaking. He talks about, when I first met him at the original, we call it the OG power players. It was the original Cody's, like, it was just his small test group of power players that was an invite thing a couple of years ago now, I think, or at least a year ago. But Joe was there, and at the time I didn't know Joe, but he's because he's more a PNC guy.
Right.
But he talked about, and this I think is a special thing that he was doing on social media, was he always wanted to be there to refer somebody. So, and it wasn't necessarily he was trying to get the referral. It was always plugging somebody else. So he was just present. And of course it took an immense amount of time to do what he was doing, but I think it paid off, because he was there. Absolutely. And adding value to other people. And so if there had been a case that was like the one we're about to talk about really quick, is, that was a large, problem solving, desired, money case that way, he would have probably been the first guy now that would say, hey, you need to talk to Bruce Weinstein about this, or you need, and if it's super Medicare or something confusing, he'd be the first guy that you need to talk to Justin Brock, or you need to talk to Joanna Wyckoff, somebody that he knows that. And so there's always different ways you can add value to the platform, and Facebook responds to people that add value. It doesn't respond to spam. It responds to value. It responds to people liking it, and watch time and viewership counts as much as a like or comment or share. People that are actually, when they're watching your video and they're watching a lot of it because they like it, and they're looking for their shout out, or whatever it is, that metric is going to count for a lot. So, so I do want to talk about this case, because I know you've talked about it a couple of times before, but it's a very interesting. We've had some big annuities before, and everybody's loves to look for them. I always tell people, you have to help people with, any problem they have, and eventually one of those problems will end up being as potentially as fruitful as this, maybe never as fruitful as this one. But tell me about a little about this, the big case, the Bruce Weinstein case.
Yeah, the attention getter, everybody.
Yeah.
So this goes back a few years ago, probably about 2003, 2004 range. And I was on the financial advisory side. I was an asset manager and doing financial planning work. I've been licensed in securities and insurance since 1986. So when I tell people I'm in the space 35 years, that's no joke. I've been licensed that long. But my book of business was predominantly asset-based, right? But we would do high-end estate planning. We would do term insurance. We would pretty much do the majority of long-term care. We did a lot of. I was doing retirement planning seminars, and I had a couple come in. This is up in New Jersey, where I'm from originally. And most unassuming couple you would have thought. Literally, the guy was wearing overalls and had a straw in his mouth. And this is Princeton, New Jersey. So it's not like I'm in rural Nebraska or somewhere farmland, right? Yeah. So he comes in, and you're kind of like, what's this guy's deal? But they signed up for a consultation, and they came in. And as it turned out, they had a $5 million portfolio being managed by the local bank, which was First Union Bank at the time, which was based out of Philadelphia, which was maybe 40 minutes from where we lived. And the challenge was that they had most of this money in one stock. That stock was First Union stock, and it was being managed by First Union Trust.
Wow.
And the problem was the stock had a cost basis of $8,000. So again, I know this is insurance forum, but that's a $5 million capital gain exposure. The value's 5, million, the basis is 8,000. So 4,999,000 and, whatever it is, so, and that's a 28% tax rate.
So Bruce,
yeah, go ahead.
I have to pause you. If you move this $5 million worth of stock in this bank, the bank would go under, right? I mean,
well, it's fun. It's funny you say that because there's a back end to the story that they did go under. So,
well, I'm glad they didn't have it still in there.
Well, that was the cherry, the cherry on the sundae here.
Yeah.
So the challenge was that if they liquidated the stock to really properly diversify, they were just living off the dividends 4%, call it 200,000. Mm-hmm. If they sold the stock, they're now down to 3.6 because they're going to pay 1.4 in capital gains tax. So that's the biggest reason the bank never did anything with the position is they're like, we're going to give away a third of the money, right? 28%. So because of my extensive background and I'd gone through different coursework and training and what I talk about in my webinars and my forums is having enough tools in the toolbox and always sharpening the saw and being able to identify opportunities. And so this was something that I would probably tell you less than 1% or 0.1% of a financial advisor would ever even know about. I mean, that's how minute the expertise is on this particular matter, especially in New Jersey, because where it's done is more in rural farmlands. It's a way that the estate planning techniques is to allow farmlands to pass from generation to generation. Anyway, the long and short is we set up what's called a charitable remainder trust, and they gifted the $5 million to the trust. Now you say, well, I'm giving away my $5 million. Well, you got to piece this together. So you give away the $5 million to a trust, the charitable remainder trust, charitable remainder. So when you're done with it, when you and Tempest are done on this earth, the remainder is going to go to your charity. You declare your charity today. It's your church, it's your synagogue, it's the 4-H, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. As part of that, the government allows the sale of those assets to be tax exempt. So we just avoided $1.4 million vanishing. Okay, that's it. Right. So now we have $5 million to reinvest. On top of that, the government allows, and the calculation was about 8%, that they're entitled to lifetime income of 8% on $5 million. We just doubled their income, right? They were getting a 4% dividend. Now they're getting 8%.
Yeah.
Right. So that's 2. Now you're going to say to yourself, I got $5 million. You just had me give it away. I think you have 2 kids or 3 kids. You have 2 kids?
I have 2 kids. Yeah.
So I still want my kids to get that $5 million. Why did you have me give that money away? Right. So that's checkbox number 3. Well, okay, hold on, Justin. We're going to take some of the 400,000 and we're going to buy an irrevocable life insurance we'll buy a second to die life insurance policy for you and Tempest. We're going to put it into an irrevocable life insurance trust, which for those who don't know means it's outside the estate. It's a totally tax-free transaction for Justin's family to inherit. Okay, when he and his wife are gone, the death benefit will pay and the insurance will go to the trust and the kids will get the income or the asset totally tax exempt. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. So you have all these moving pieces. We're replacing the asset. We're creating it in a tax-free environment. We're selling the asset in a tax-free environment. We're doubling their income stream and we're diversifying the portfolio. So we had a $5 million annuity sale. We had a $5 million life insurance sale, and then we had to sell the stock, and it generated about $400,000 in commissions. And the annuity paid a 1% trail. So we're getting a 50,000. I don't talk about this in the topic, but it also had a $50,000 a year fee that kicked back to us as well. So it was well over, I mean, this is 16, 17 years later. I mean, this literally, was over $1 million transaction.
Wow.
Net. So, and then your cherry on the top, as you said about First Union. First Union got acquired by Wachovia. Wachovia failed in the housing crisis in 2008, 2009. I was working for Wachovia Securities at the time, and my stock lost 98%.
Wow.
a $60 stock went down to $1.25. So their $5 million, if they never met us, didn't come to the seminar, didn't have the solution, just stayed with that stock, would have been worth less than $100,000, and they would have lost their dividend and income. And this is all they were living on.
This is where we talk about win, win, win. They won,
Triple win.
You won. The only people that lost would have lost anyway, and that was Wachovia and First Union. So, but hey, man, this is where, when I wake up in the morning and I'm telling my kids when I'm dropping them off at school that their job is to go in there and to extract information from those teachers and those books and those lessons so that they can use it in life, because knowledge is power. And you having that knowledge, there would have been any number of people that would have sat there and been like, I don't know what to do with this. And the thing is, guys, like, if you don't know what to do with a case like this, there are people like Bruce. As I'm talking to you, I'm sitting there like, I may need to introduce you to my dad to try to get, because I'm on the side of having to deal with certain estate taxes and all the things.
Absolutely.
And it's an extremely complex situation that most people don't know anything about. So maybe a conversation there, just from us.
100%. I had a partner at the time. He and I had started together in the business back in the 80s. He had no clue what I was doing. No clue. So it was just my path of where I went to educate myself and to separate myself and to have the knowledge for that one time Moby Dick went flying by. I was able to harpoon him, right? Like, I was able to find it. And it was a massive win for the client because it really saved their behinds. They would have been financially destroyed. So
this is a technical question, but I want to, because, I've set a goal for myself by the end of this year to have founded a 501(c) dedicated to helping veterans find jobs.
Awesome.
Probably as a first agenda, for would be helping them place jobs in the financial sector or get started on their own, and find other people that want to help them, that sort of thing. If you had a trust like you were talking about, where you had, and I know that might be specific to the area or the industry or different things, but let's say you had that trust and you had designated that money to go to a charity. Could it be a charity that you had founded?
With your own assets, you mean?
Yeah, like if
funding it with your own assets, absolutely. It's done all the time. I mean, most of the big money out there from the day, the Vanderbilts, the Fords, the Rockefellers, right, is they all set up family foundations.
Yeah.
And so they used, may not have been a charitable remainder trust as much as another type of foundation, but I'm sure they use something, and then they gift that stock, and they maintain control of the company using the trust, and they generate income for themselves. Yeah. And they're able, as people always say, do you ever wonder how the Rockefellers passed on what in the day was deemed to be hundreds of millions of dollars, let alone the present value of billions, right?
Yeah.
It's just understanding and getting the high-powered estate planning experts in the room, right? Yeah. And paying them. But look, not to get political, but the agenda in Washington is to get the rich to pay more. But these techniques are in place to help them avoid it. And so unless
it always ends up affecting more negatively the upper middle class, because they have some money, but they don't have enough normally 100%. To find the people to help them establish, because the richest people figure out the loopholes, and they make sure for lobbyists that the loopholes are there to continue to use. And it's not that the loopholes are bad. Like if there's charitable things that are tied to it, or if it's to encourage investment in real estate, so that they can continue to grow commercial and residential real estate availability. There's reasons that some of those loopholes exist. But rich people, the richest, know how to utilize those loopholes to keep their assets working for them, rather than just turning over money to the IRS. That's the reason Trump didn't want people to see his tax returns, is because it wasn't that there was anything illegal. It was that, the middle class guy that's paying a ton of taxes doesn't understand how Trump's 14 tax attorneys and financial estate planning team is figuring out how to put that money to work rather than giving it to the IRS. And you'd be a fool not to. Like, I mean, why would you turn it over?
If it's in the tax code, why should you not be using it? Yeah. It's just a matter of, can you find the page that's appropriate to your need and say, oh, it's right here, I could do this. And even in a lot of cases, you get an IRS ruling, right? You get an IRS letter and it'll be approved or challenged. And I was on a call yesterday with my accountant, and he's got a high net worth client that's making a ton of money in Bitcoin, like hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah. And he's the expert in Bitcoin, and they're on a call with the IRS, and he's educating the IRS on Bitcoin and how all this cyber trading and transactions are. And they had to get a private IRS, client ruling for the tax treatment of these transactions, because there was this debate on how it's being challenged.
Yeah, the IRS automated stuff, it's a lot of it is like kicking out of a computer, I'm afraid, at this point. And so, you definitely in certain scenarios have to get somebody to escalate it, to get somebody on the phone and be like, no, this is not how it works. But so I'm even curious as you're talking, I wouldn't say it's not like I have $5 million sitting around. Most of my, how this works, most of my income goes back into building our business. Sure. But we might have a $5 million business income. If I
cut you off, you have an asset.
Yeah.
Right. The business has an asset and a value.
Mm-hmm.
If the business is owned by your father and he wants to leave it to you and his heirs, the government's going to assess a value at inheritance time. And now the question is, what's the value and what's the tax implications? Mm-hmm. And so for you as the inheritor, how do you create liquidity to pay those taxes? Right. And so this is where that ILET trust came in my scenario. But this is what we're working on a case now for a very high net worth client that we're creating a nine-figure ILET trust to create estate liquidity for her when the time comes, so that her heirs can either keep the business but not be forced to sell the business. Now, you may not want to. You're in the space, you're already running the business. So as a family asset, that's not challenged. But what if you and your brother didn't want the business that your father left you? You're going to have to be forced to sell it, which might be a fire sale. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to pay the taxes within a 9 to 12 month range. And if the government says, hey, Justin, you owe us 50 million, where am I coming up with 50 million? Right. So that's where the estate planning comes in, that the Covey, begin with the end in mind. So where are we going to be and how do we fix it now? And then we'll implement change as we need it. Any plan's obsolete as soon as it's done, but you got to have a plan.
Begin with the end in mind. So, and we've been having some of these conversations lately. So our setup is interesting, where my dad is, we have two corporations. My dad is a shareholder of one. I'm a shareholder of that one as well. And then I have one where I'm 100% owner. And as right now we are in a share gifting mode on the other one over time, right? But if I'm curious from my own estate planning, and I'm 33, but still, I anticipate our, business income to skyrocket, and our assets as well. Is it at this point, and I'm saying all this because I want people to hear it, because I think this is a legitimate conversation that I would have, and that some of these people's clients and they may be having. If I am wanting to participate in some of the tax advantages of some of this early on, are there tax advantages to me going ahead and starting to start a charitable trust or something like that, to begin to push some of my income in, in a tax advantage that, let's say I started a 501(c)(3) or a foundation that actually had a charitable mission I'm passionate about, and I actually want to do that. It's not just a tax shelter. But is there, that seems like a real conversation where I should be having, like, let's start setting up some of these trusts where I'm pushing money into this,
I concur,
aside for a charitable purpose. Maybe the money's not being spent yet, but I can go ahead and put it there where we know that's the mission for that money, and then I'm not paying taxes on it now as earned income because it has a charitable purpose for later.
Right.
Is that something that exists? Or, I mean,
Sure.
yeah.
Sure.
Well,
And let's be clear, I'm not a tax advisor, right? It's always been, you know, I don't give tax advice, but the answer is yes. There's tools, techniques, and vehicles out there. So for you to create your own 501(c) or whatever the, you know, the parentheses and commas are, but for you to make your own foundation, and then how you want to fund it, and then what the purpose of the money in there does, I mean, you can do that fairly instantaneously at any time. Now, the challenge for you is going to be, what do you fund it with, right? Is it physical cash? Is it stock? You know, so let's say you were an early investor in Microsoft, right? Let's go back to this guy's stock that had an $8,000 basis on $5 million. So if you had something that was highly appreciated and liquidating it and the capital gains is prohibitive and you don't want to, well, you can transfer it and gift it to a trust, and now it avoids those tax implications. So it just depends on what the vehicle is that you're going to fund it with. You're a privately held business, right? You're a family-owned business. So technically, depending on how your business structure is, LLC and corporation type status, you technically have shares of stock. I mean, I'm incorporated. We technically have stock. I don't issue it. I'm not giving it to anybody. It's just my wife and I. But, you know, technically I could say I'm giving 10% of my stock to the charity. Your business is worth 30 million. And all of a sudden you moved 3 million valuation. But how do they sell it? It's not liquid. You're not public. It's not tradable. So, you know,
there could be some tax advantages to doing something like that.
Potentially. Yeah.
And of course, there's an accountant. Yeah, I know. Right. I say that frequently myself. It's on smaller things.
Right. It's accountants and attorneys, right? You need estate planning attorneys. You need strong tax code. You know, accountants do different things. So that just like insurance has different disciplines, so does, you know, CPAs. So you need somebody who's a tax specialist, a state tax specialist, something like that, tied into business, and then how you value the business, and then what you can move in there. And I would defer to the estate planning attorney and the accountant on most of that. But strategically, I'm capable of giving the 10,000-foot view, and then I'll defer where my knowledge kind of ends here, Justin. I'm not going to go any further. Like, let's get somebody else in the room.
Yeah. So if you had somebody out there who was listening to this and they're like, man, I have a case like this, I want to bring Bruce into this, you know, deal. As kind of, so you would end up being kind of initially the theoretical architect of a path, but then bring in, you know, say, hey, who is your accountant? If they don't have one, maybe recommend one or find one. Maybe we have an estate attorney to make sure we're doing all this portion right. You're helping with the architect of the concept, bringing in these other people to do that, putting together this puzzle. If there are agents out there that have that, are there ways where they can bring the case to you and still profit from bringing it to you legally and all that?
We as long as they're licensed, we'll share, and you know, that revenue stream based upon what it is and obviously how it's structured and paid. But yeah, we're always looking for strategic partners and opportunities to leverage our strengths with somebody else's vulnerabilities or openings. So if you don't know, look, a big mantra, this is the opening to my talk at the Rising Stars workshop, is never say no to an opportunity. And I'll save that for your event, so we won't get into it here. But the whole point is, you be the conductor, you be the gatekeeper, and anybody that comes to you, always say yes. And then go find the strategic partner. I need Justin for this. I need Bruce for that. I'm going to get Robin for this. And have that center of influence and value flow to you. Because the opportunities will be endless. The second you say, no, I don't do that, they're not going to call you a second time.
You become like a contractor of sorts. Whereas you're building a house, if somebody says, hey, you've been building 3,000 square foot houses, can you build me a 15,000 square foot house? I'm the contractor. Absolutely. We can figure out how to do that. I've got to bring in the right partners and all that, but we can do that. It's the same thing. Like if somebody came to you with a $50 million estate, you could definitely say, we can figure that out. We just got to bring in the right people. Well, Bruce, man, I am excited to have you at Medicare Con.
Me too. I'm excited.
I think you're going to bring a tremendous amount of value. I think people should absolutely make sure that they are in your time slot, and we'll have that posted as soon as we get closer to this event. We'll probably get together again before then to talk about it, but I'm very excited to have you, excited to have everyone there, but I know you'll bring a lot of value. And this was a really good interview, man. There's probably some things when I get some time that I am going to come back to you just on my own stuff, because I know you have a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience in it, in things that other people don't know about. So appreciate having you in my back pocket.
I'm humbled for the invite. I'm certainly grateful for having met and developing any relationships, but thank you for this time. Thank you for thinking highly enough of me to invite me to Medicare Con, even though that's not our forte direct business, but it's part of what we offer. And I'm looking forward to speaking to everybody that's there, and always a resource, anybody out there, including you and your family.
There's going to be a ton of people in that room that are going to come across people that I know you could help. And I know that you could help them learn how to help those people. And so however that ends up transpiring in a consultation, anyone that provides as much value as you've provided me just in this conversation deserves to be at Medicare Con. So I appreciate you accepting the invite. And thank you so much for doing this interview. If you guys want to reach out to Bruce, follow him on Facebook, man. He's got some great stuff that he puts out there. Is there any other way that you'd like people to reach out to you?
Our phone number, you can call my private cell, 732-407-8063. I think our 800 number is 844-WE-COVER, or 4-WE-COVER. Weinstein Wealth Insurance Solutions, WeinsteinWealth.com. RUDFG, we got it all going.
There you go, RUDFG. Yeah, hit him up.
Are you destined for greatness?
If you have anything that he can help with, or if you enjoyed the show, he loves building connections. Great guy. So thank you so much, Bruce.
Thank you,
Justin.
Justin.
Next time, everybody, check out MedicareCon.com to get your tickets. You'll see Bruce there, and he's going to be bringing some extreme value. All right, we're out. Did you subscribe to the YouTube channel? Did you like the video? Please turn your notifications on and head over here to our next video. And if you haven't joined our Facebook group, check out Medicare Gurus. It's over 7,000 members strong currently, and there's tons and tons of wealth of information and knowledge from experienced agents as well as new agents that you can find and help shepherd. So thank you guys so much for watching. Check this video out right here.